Scott Franklin, Republican nominee for Congress in the 15th Congressional District, which covers much of Polk and Hillsborough counties. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start before the pandemic. Would you have voted for or against the budget deal President Trump struck and signed that suspended borrowing limits for 2 years and escalated federal deficit spending and with it national debt?
Yeah, I would have voted along with my party on that.
Both Florida Senators Rubio and Scott voted against that because they cited concerns about our national debt before the pandemic even struck. How then would you reduce the deficit and bring down our national debt?
I just think we need to take a deeper look at all the programs across the board. Having served in government for years in the military, I've seen, at least from that aspect of the military, how there's a lot of ways we can improve the way we spend our money.
I'm sure you've studied the budget. Do you see a program in particular you think we need to cut to get our fiscal house in order, or at least reduce?
Well, I think there need to be reductions across the board. I think within every department of the government, there's room to make reductions.
In order to address our fiscal crisis, should we raise the retirement age for Social Security recipients? And if so, how much would you raise it?
Well, we need to get into the actuarial studies there, but if you look back at when Social Security was first implemented, it was, the life expectancy of the average American was not that many more years beyond the age at which they would start receiving it. In fact, it was the Old Age and Survivors Disability Insurance Program. So I don't think, since it was first implemented in the 30s, we've kept pace with what it was originally intended to do. Now, but you can't change that on people who are anywhere either at retirement or close to it. But I would feel, if I were a 20-something now coming in, I'd look at it and say, realistically, if my life expectancy is X and it's greater than it was at 63 or 65 when the program started, I think it would be reasonable to index that up. But I think it's something that people need decades to prepare for.
In June, you stated there's no conclusive evidence that wearing masks prevent the spread of COVID. What is your position now, based on everything you've read? Should people wear or not wear masks in public and interacting with others to prevent the spread of COVID-19?
Well, I've said that I think that the data is conflicting. And there are studies that say that it's highly effective. Some say to some degree, others not so much. And that's been a moving target all along. I personally wear a mask where I feel like I'm in a position where I might be in jeopardy. I don't fall into any of the at-risk groups, but I do believe a lot in personal responsibility. And I don't think that government mandates, and a lot of that conversation was held in response to how we were looking at that here in Lakeland. I think we have to be careful with how we do mandates, particularly those when going in, we're told that there was no intention of enforcing them.
You have qualms with mandates, but what would your recommendation, based on everything you know, to others be? Should they or should they not wear masks in public, regardless of any mandate?
I think it's a personal decision. No, I would not require a mandate.
You wouldn't require a mandate, but what is your gut feeling based on everything that you've read, and what is knowledge telling you? Do masks at this point help prevent the spread of COVID-19?
I'm not sure. I honestly don't know that. And I can show you scientific studies too that show with the particle size of COVID, the size of the COVID particles, that the masks don't do that same purpose.
There's an amendment on the ballot in Florida to increase the minimum wage in phases. One, do you support or oppose that? And two, would you support or oppose any effort to raise the minimum wage on a federal level if elected to Congress?
I'm not in favor of the constitutional amendment that we have. I think the studies would indicate that it's going to end up in the long run killing jobs. There's a segment of our society that needs those minimum wage jobs to learn and train, and that's going to be eliminated.
Well, by extension, would you support or oppose any federal efforts to raise the minimum wage?
No.
The Trump administration struck a new North American trade deal, but it still allows Mexico to subsidize products that directly compete with Florida farm products. It allows the Mexican growers to charge less as a result and undercut the American farms and the Florida growers in particular. Should President Trump have demanded that Mexico change its trade practices in that regard as a condition of the new agreement? Was not doing that a mistake?
Well, I do know that a lot of those fine points are still being hammered out. And I've spoken particularly in this district in CD15, that's obviously a huge concern to the fruit and vegetable growers. I've met with a lot of the strawberry growers, and there is great concern about Mexico dumping their product at subsidized government pricing.
If elected to Congress, is there anything you could and would specifically do as a federal legislator to address the problem?
Well, I think we need to take care of our food supply. When we go into a pandemic and we go to the grocery stores and we see empty shelves, it's a quick reminder of how tenuous that is.
Secretary Perdue did say there's a concern over the food supply chain in this country, and we saw it when the pandemic struck. People who could not afford to eat lined up for blocks to get help from food banks while we had millions of pounds of fresh produce rotting in Florida fields. Where was the breakdown there, and what specifically would you do if elected to Congress?
Well, some of that is a challenge of something that hit us so rapidly in the pandemic, and the supply chain and the methods by which we get crops from the field to the table. They don't just get manipulated and changed instantly overnight. So there's some retooling and restructuring that's required.
Do you support the effort to invalidate the Affordable Care Act that's heading to the Supreme Court shortly after the election?
I do, because I don't think the Affordable Care Act as it was written is the solution that's going to be best for Americans overall in the long run. Part of what we do in my business does involve health insurance. And I see, since the Affordable Care Act was put into place, a tremendous increase in prices, less choices, higher deductibles on families who can afford insurance at all. It's just, to me, it's problematic. And the best solutions are going to be market-based solutions, but it's really going to require an honest conversation with all the parties coming to the table, and people are going to have to leave special interest at the side and figure out how to work through to get a solution that works for everyone.
Commissioner Franklin, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.